YouGov survey for the Institute for Family Studies and the Wheatley Institution, we found a full 26-point difference in religious attendance between these two groups. 18% of liberals said they could be found in a church, temple, synagogue, or mosque at least once a month, compared to 44% of conservatives. This view garners further support from the research on happiness. A Pew Research study, for instance, ties the Republican attainment of happiness advantage over Democrats in part to more marriage, greater family satisfaction, and higher levels of religious attendance. Okay, so that's some of the article. And from here, it moves on to its main point, how liberals can be happier. And the answer the article gives, it says, liberals seeking to improve their own lives might look to social institutions of family and faith as resources that can help lift life satisfaction. But as soon as the article gives us this answer, it goes on to say that doing this might be harder than it sounds. Quote, "This would be a challenge given that support for marriage and faith has dropped more in recent years among liberals rather than conservatives, and secularization has been concentrated among more left-leaning Americans." In other words, the very institutions that might improve liberals' happiness are increasingly viewed negatively by liberals. So that's the New York Times article I read this past Thanksgiving Day. Liberals suffer, it basically says, because of disengagement with social institutions of family and faith. But such suffering will be hard to heal since these exact same social institutions are increasingly viewed negatively. Now, why this last part is so, the article never explicitly answers. And pretty soon I came up with my own answer. Conservatives enjoy greater access to social institutions of family and faith because, in large part, those institutions take traditional forms. And conservatives are okay with tradition. Liberals could have access to them also, but the liberal imagination about what these institutions could look like, the imagination of the liberal, often assumes traditional forms. And liberals have outgrown these forms. And the New York Times article itself helps to demonstrate this. It starts out talking about the social institution of family, but then when it gets down to quoting statistics, it narrows down to the narrow variety of family that conserves to the conservative worldview, heterosexual marriage. That's what it does. That's the sliver of family possibility that they grab a hold of, and we know or ought to know that family can take all sorts of forms. There is, in other words, a widespread tendency among most everyone to imagine the social institutions of family and faith in conservative terms. So the liberal might find themselves saying, I can't have a family or take the phrase family values seriously because I don't want anything to do with the traditional sort. Saying this all the while unconsciously assuming that only the traditional sort is valid. Similarly, the liberal will say to themselves, I can't have faith because I want nothing to do with the traditional sort. Church just isn't for me. Saying this while all the time unconsciously assuming that only the traditional sort is valid. Liberals so often know what they don't like, but when pressed to say what they do like, they can draw a blank. But I don't care what your political or theological leanings are. Everybody needs a family, where they are held in bonds of commitment and caring, whether it is a biological family, whether it is a chosen family. I don't care what kind of family, what kind of plumbing is involved, doesn't matter. Everyone needs a family, and everyone needs a faith community that rallies them to love and justice, that reminds them that they are more than their paycheck. And they are more than their particular collection of social identities. And they are more than their regrets. That beneath all of that, they are fundamentally children of God with inherent worth and dignity. If people don't have these needed and necessary things, there is loneliness, there is dissatisfaction, there is disempowerment, there is despair, there is suffering. Liberals out there are suffering. I checked out the Pew Research Center to get more of a handle on the statistics. I found this, and I quote, "In Pew Research Center telephone surveys conducted in 2018 and 2019, 65% of American adults describe themselves as Christians when asked about their religion, down 12%. 12 percentage points over the past decade. Meanwhile, the religiously unaffiliated share of the population, consisting of people who describe their religious identity as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, now stands at 26%, up from 17% in 2009. Do you know how many folks in America constitute 26%? How many millions of people are a part of that 26% statistic? The article goes on. Furthermore, the data shows a wide gap between older Americans, baby boomers and members of the silent generation, and millennials in their levels of religious affiliation and attendance. Only about 1 in 3 millennials say they attend religious services at least once or twice a month. Roughly 2/3 of millennials attend worship services a few times a year, or even less, including about 4 in 10 who say they seldom or never go. Indeed, there are as many millennials who say they never attend religious services, 22%, as there are who say they go at least once a week. Liberals are suffering. That's what those statistics are saying, especially younger liberals. And we can help. We are poised to help. We are a church that is decidedly not in the conservative mold when it comes to definitions of valid family and valid faith. And we are committed to community impact, which is about the reduction of suffering and the increase of joy. What we can do, how we can serve, is through an evangelism that is simply a matter of expanding people's imagination about what is possible for family and what is possible for faith, to push back on the rigid conservative conceptions, to get us out there and connect with the millions of liberals who don't know that they don't know about us, to reach out and to say that yes, the sort of church really does exist where you don't have to think alike to love alike. I can't tell you how many times I have described Unitarian Universalism and our church to people, and the response is sheer astonishment. They're not just surprised, they are astonished. It's like describing this church, it's like committing a category error for them. They never once imagined a church like ours could even be possible. But it is possible. We are the proof. We are the proof of that. We've got to reach out evangelically. So we come back to that question, what might that look like for us in 2022? Back in the 1940s, Reverend Baker and Reverend Shatty, they started a new church. That became us. In later decades, West Shore would pay this forward and start Southwest UU Church in North Royalton. And my suggestion is not so much about that, with the bigness of that, as simply the following. Number one, to just stop for a moment and truly wrap our minds around what a full program of community impact really is, and to acknowledge that social justice work in the world, as important as that is, it doesn't substitute for a membership growth strategy. Intentional membership growth requires evangelism, which is its own kind of thing. That's number one. Number two, to allow this expanded vision of community impact to invigorate us, to organize around it, to develop an evangelism team, to invest serious money in its work. If you are interested in this, here in the sanctuary or at home, reach out to me. Let's start a conversation. Let's see if we can build some momentum around this. Number three is to get busy. Don't hang back until something more formal in the church is organized. Instead, I urge you, I invite you, take personally the thought that being a member of this church means that you are in a position to heal people's suffering by just letting them know we exist and then inviting them to check us out. And you know, those other people, they may be closer to us than we think. I'm, for example, talking about our children. If you have children, you will bless their lives immeasurably by bringing them to church, even if they complain about being bored, even if that involves a struggle. Bring them anyway. Make church going a habit in their lives, and you can feel good knowing that you are truly preventing certain kinds of suffering from visiting them in their lives. Number four to do is to erase all the old tapes about what evangelism looks like. Just erase all those old tapes, to reimagine what this can look like. I mean, absolutely, our way of sharing Unitarian Universalism can't be about scaring people. It can't be a matter of declaring that Unitarian Universalism is like the one way, one truth, one light. We are way too modest for that. It certainly can't be about presuming what is best for another person. But what we can do is this. We can talk about how Unitarian Universalism has proven best for us. We Unitarian Universalists do not shy away at all from recommending a favorite restaurant to others, do we? We don't. We don't shy away from that. Why can't we recommend our favorite church to them also? And in the same spirit, as in, this is why I love West Shore, and you may love it too. Check it out. Now let me say a little more about this particular point. When sharing what you love about Unitarian Universalism, I suggest that you avoid taking the let me tell you everything there is to know approach. I suggest that you avoid that because that is anxiety provoking. That is like trying to do a dissertation defense or something. I don't know. And the thing about it is anxiety, well, people sense that a mile away. They sense that a mile away, and that's not how we want to share what is important for us in our lives. It's better to relax. It's better to just offer a teaser or two that you are particularly fond of to just start the conversation. The best thing to do is to just offer a personal story about a time when you met the Spirit of life in this place. A time when something happened and it just felt wonderful for you. That's great. Simple as that. Also good to mention are facts that are distinctive about us and stand out, facts that particularly intrigue you. For example, like our 7 principles. For some of you, that just is beautiful, and that's a thing to share. Or how about that we do a flower communion every year, and nobody has a service like that? It's beautiful. Or what about folks like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Robert Fulghum, people like that, famous people who are UUs? And you could share that particular factoid. You could share a notable fact like this, that the classic story, A Christmas Carol, was written by a Unitarian. Charles Dickens was a Unitarian, and his Unitarian theology of transformation and goodness and giving again, that came straight out of his Unitarian faith, that eventually changed the way people around the world came to celebrate Christmas. Christmas used to be celebrated in a very different way, but that story made such a difference. It's the way people around the world pretty much celebrate Christmas today. What I want to say is Christmas is our holiday. If I had a mic, I'd just go boom, mic drop. Psh. I mean, ho, 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 right? All sorts of things that can be said. But again, our purpose in sharing Unitarian Universalism is to heal suffering and to increase joy. Let's keep that priority before us. We want other people to know how powerfully we have experienced this faith, and perhaps they are in a place in their life where they're able to receive that. Perhaps. We can share it, share our news, our stories, with the same graciousness as we would news about a fantastic restaurant or a brilliant movie, without any heavy-handedness, only to say, it's brought wonderful things into my life, and it may do that for you. Check it out. I want to close by looping back to this sermon's title, How Liberals Can Be Happier. And so far, I've pretty much talked about making other liberals happier. The liberals not already among us. The liberals who don't know that they don't know about Unitarian Universalism. But what about you and me, the liberals who are here? What's in it for our happiness? And I'm going to let the Reverend Quillen Shin speak to that. Quillen Shin was one of our preeminent evangelists of the 19th century, credited with starting at least 40 congregations all across North America. Why did he do it? His answer, in truth, no person knows the full joy of universalism until he sends it to another. And in fact, he cannot keep it for himself in its fullness unless he is sending it abroad. In other words, joy that isn't fully shared dies young. Let the joy be fully shared. Will you say amen with me? Amen. Let's sing our closing hymn for the day. Please rise as you are willing and able. Hum along with me, sway along with me as you wish. It's going to be number 121, beautiful evangelical song, We'll Build a Land.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.
A quick reminder, please join me for the sermon chat at 12:30, and I'll see you on Zoom. And now, as we go out into a new day, a new week, take with you these words that I encountered through West Shore member Drina Nemes just yesterday at the pastoral care team meeting. These words come from the Reverend John Wolfe. They are beautiful. They recommend a wonderful diet for the new year. A diet for the new year. Here's from Reverend John Wolfe. Fast from criticism and feast on praise. Fast from self-pity and feast on joy. Fast from ill temper and feast on peace. Fast from resentment and feast on contentment. Fast from jealousy, feast on love. Fast from pride, feast on humility, fast from selfishness, feast on service, fast from fear, feast on faith. So may it be. Have a great week. Amen.